Bill Cobb, H&R Block came out with 2015 results on Monday. Turns out that your sales were up about 2%, but your net income was off about $13 million to $500 million for the year. So before we talk about what's going on this year, tell me what happened last year.
Yeah, so Greg, we had this company had not had a lot of revenue growth. We've now done it for 3 years in a row, while modest. Our earnings were down primarily due to some increased depreciation and amortization. When I came in 4 years ago, we had to do some catch-up capex. We also bought a lot of our franchises back last year, so D&A was up. Overall, EBITDA was actually up modestly. You know, we run EBITDA margins of about 31%, so I'm pleased with that. You know, we generate a lot of cash in this business. So overall, over $3 billion in revenue, almost $1 billion in EBITDA. So pretty good performance. Not our best, but everything heading in the right direction.
Well, now let's look ahead. What's going on with the bank? When are you going to get rid of it finally?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as I said on the earnings call the other day, the only word I can use is frustrated. I'm frustrated by the pace of the approval. Now, I think everything is going well. The transaction on its merits, this should be approved. We've had good relations with the regulators. They've asked good questions. I think it's pretty much in their hands at this point, but we look forward to a positive outcome, and then we can move from there. As you know, we mentioned in the call, we have about $1 billion of excess capital sitting on our balance sheet. And once we are able to close on the bank, we'll be able to come to investors with what our plans are going forward.
And can you talk about the Affordable Care Act's impact on your results? I think 16% of the people that filed with you were affected by Obamacare, if you will. They actually paid a little bit more than they thought they'd pay.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that as a driver of your business?
Yeah, so we have, for this year, about 16% of our clients were impacted. About half of them had to pay a penalty. The penalty, which many of them thought was going to be under $100, turned out to be on average about $178. But the big change was for those who are in the exchange, because it's an advanced tax credit, it's not a subsidy, and those people actually, 2/3 of them underestimated their income for the year. They had to pay an average of about 30% of their refund back. Now, about a quarter of people underestimated their income. They got a windfall of about $400, but it's confusing reconciling their income against the actual advanced tax credit.
Well, it's nice that you can help them out, and you can help them out either online or in a brick and mortar store. Can you talk about your brick and mortar growth versus your online growth?
Yeah, so our online growth was very strong, 8% unit growth, 12% revenue growth. On the assisted side, or where you come to the offices, our volume was down, our revenue was up, and we had probably the best year we've had on our 1040 business, our complex 1040. We finished very strong in the season, disappointing in the beginning of the year, and obviously we're going to be looking to address that as we go forward.
And then finally, people are worried about getting their information stolen. It's happening in the government, at the IRS, and at retail stores nationwide. Can you tell me what you're doing to protect people's personal data?
Yeah, this is a real issue, Greg,
Big deal.
and it is getting bigger all the time. The stolen identity theft, this is a real deal. We introduced a product this year called the Tax Identity Shield, which helps people all the way from giving them a sense for how vulnerable they are to if they get their identity stolen, the restoration services. In addition to that, I'm actually leaving from here and going to Washington, D.C. I'll be with the IRS Commissioner tomorrow and other industry leaders. We are working as a public-private partnership to begin to make steps forward on how we want to combat this issue, which is a real, vulnerable issue for individuals, because when your identity is stolen, you are then into, vast paperwork and months, and the IRS hasn't figured out a slick way to, handle these things, because this has come on like an onslaught with the fraudsters over the last couple of years. So this is a real problem. We're hopefully making steps along the way, together with the IRS. We have been leading the way on advocating for, licensing of tax preparers and making the documentation requirements the same between the DIY and the assisted piece, because most of this problem, the overwhelming majority of this, comes through do-it-yourself tax software.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Bill.
Thanks, Greg. Good to see you.
And thank you for watching The Street.